Today I have with me the Supper Club, Elena and Bethany. We all share family ties and have been friends since high school. And after a band reunion a few years ago, formed the Supper Club, where we regularly meet and, have supper and spend the afternoon together, catching up and fellowshipping. I think Lena can offer a unique insight on today's topic, as she is the daughter of a funeral director and is married to someone in the funeral industry. So let's dive in. And the feature food for today is funeral potatoes. It's basically a casserole, potatoes of some sort, cream of chicken, chicken soup or some kind of cream of something.
Cream of something.
Cheese, and the topping, Lena prefers corn flakes, and I quite fancy some Ritz and butter. But
like any southern casserole has on it most of the time.
Either one's good though. And the featured phrase for today is, she looks so good, so natural, like she's asleep.
I think we've all heard that at a funeral or 10.
Countless times. The featured word for today is humdinger. I thought this was a southern word and have heard it all my life, but it turns out it has a little broader range than just the South. It was first recorded in the Daily Enterprise newspaper in Livingston, Montana, back on June 4th, 1883.
It's a long time ago.
So let's use it in a sentence. As Dorothy in Golden Girls replied to Blanche when asked how the funeral was, she said, "It was a humdinger, Blanche. We closed the place." Let's talk about some current funeral customs. I think most of us are familiar with present day customs. The first one, sending flowers.
Do you know why people started using fresh flowers?
Tell me.
To cover the smell of the decaying body before bodies were embalmed.
So flowers were very much appreciated back in that time, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and that's why they go back so far.
Right.
Though over the last few years, I think it's become more customary to send houseplants and other, like lilies and stuff, instead of fresh cut flowers.
I wonder if that's so like the family can keep them instead of, because the flowers are going to be, they're going to go to the gravesite typically, and then, unless you take some of them off, then that's it.
Right. You don't get to enjoy them very long.
Or some people will ask for no flowers and for you to contribute to the deceased favorite charity.
That's true. The next one is funeral processions. I don't think they're quite as common nowadays. A lot of funeral homes and communities won't do them due to safety concerns.
Yeah. I know my brother's a police officer, and he says especially like in a bigger city, it does cause issues just because of like how much traffic there is. It really sometimes I think can be a safety issue.
Oh yeah. Being from this neck of the woods, I think we're all accustomed to what we're supposed to do when we see a funeral procession.
Stop in the middle of the road.
That's what Lena does anyway.
Well, I was going to say come to a complete stop and pull off, slightly off the road.
Not Lena. She's stopping in the middle of the road.
Everybody's going to stop.
She's going to see to it that everybody observes the tradition.
Listen, that's all about some Southern hospitality.
One time we were in Atlanta and had went to a Braves game, and there was a large group of us, and a family friend was driving, and we were in her vehicle, and it was quite a large vehicle. I think there were 7 or 8 of us in there. And it was in downtown Atlanta, so it was like you had kicked an ant bed. And all of a sudden, traffic came to a stop, and she was really frustrated. She couldn't figure out why everybody had stopped. The lights were green in our direction. And so she pulled out to go around them, and all of a sudden this line of cars started going past us, and she got very upset. And she's like, who do they think they are? Why are they so special? She had missed the big black hearse
Oh my gosh.
heading up the line of cars. So as far as services go, I think the new norm nowadays is visitation with service to follow immediately, and they may or may not be a graveside service.
So like all in one day, typically.
Yeah. When I was growing up, it was much longer and drawn out affair. Visitation be held one evening, where the family would visit from say 5 to 6, and then would welcome friends from 6 to 8. Most of the time, the line was out the front door into the parking lot and wrapped around the building. And then the next day, the body would lie in state in the church or the funeral chapel for about an hour, with the funeral service to follow after that. And then typically there would be a graveside service.
I think some of that has changed. It's typically cheaper if you do everything in one day, number one. And number two, people are so much busier now than they used to be.
For sure.
So it's easier for somebody to just, maybe if they've got to take the day off, they only have to take one day. And then everything's done. Instead of having to do a visitation one night, funeral the next day. It's just easier to get it all done in one fell swoop.
Right. And I don't think as many people go to funerals anymore.
No. And I think that goes back to what you said about it being everybody's so busy now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, used to it was very custom for your job to allow you to take off for funerals, but jobs aren't like that anymore.
Right. A little funny story about graveside service. At my grandmother's funeral, we were sitting there at the graveside, and I was unaware that it was her wish that a family friend who played the trumpet to play a little hymn.
Oh no.
So we're sitting there, and there was a little slump in the service, and it got really quiet, and then there was a blast from a trumpet. And to be honest, it was one of the most beautiful blasts I've ever heard. But I did jump about 6 inches out of my chair because I thought the Lord was coming back, and the trumpet was heralding his return.
You done thought you'd been raptured.
I'm sure the people around me thought I was being raptured too, because I jumped a good 6 inches out of that chair.
Yeah,
How
when-
old were you?
That was, I think, 2007, so 20 years old.
So you were levitating out of your chair.
I
But
was.
that's cute.
Now, usually the church would feed the family after the graveside service. The members of the church would all bring dishes. Everybody usually had a set dish that they would normally bring.
Like funeral potatoes.
Funeral potatoes. Or fried chicken 12 different ways. And honestly, it's some of the best food I've ever had. I don't want to say I ever look forward to a funeral, but that is one silver lining.
Well, I think everybody puts their best food out there because they know, you know, hey, family's mourning, can't bring, you know, nasty food.
Exactly. And there was, it was the same service that I had been raptured out of my chair. I got a piece of pecan pie there in the fellowship hall that looked pretty good. It looked homemade. And when I sat down to take a bite, I was quite surprised.
Uh-oh.
And to avoid any hurt feelings, because I just figured the maker of the pie was watching me to see how I enjoyed it, I smiled and slid it to the side, and it was quietly and swiftly taken over to the garbage.
Disposed of.
By a friend who wanted to save me the embarrassment of seeming ungrateful.
didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings for
That's-
their award-winning pecan pie.
That's absolutely right. That's
Like
all-
Aunt Bee's pickles.
Yeah, that's Southern manners
For sure.
101. And then there's the thank you cards. The family usually sends out thank you cards. Now, one of the best things we received after my grandmother's passing, a lady named Miss Betty stopped me after the graveside service and handed me several books of stamps. And she said she thought that these would be useful for us and it would be one less thing we had to worry about, so we could use them to send out thank you cards.
That's a great idea.
Right. That is, because that's something you don't, a lot of people probably aren't really thinking of, that all the things that come along with funerals and then all the stuff that comes after. So
Right.
that was nice for her to take that off y'all's plate.
Oh yeah, it was very unique. I had not even given it any thought. So the next one, let's talk about obituaries.
Oh, I've seen some.
It's always customary to place an obituary in the newspaper, but now it seems like newspapers aren't read as much. So the obituaries are usually published so the family can share it on social media, and the funeral home will share it for the family. But you know what I absolutely cannot stand?
What?
Obituaries with no information.
I need to know.
I want to know everything.
What happened to you? Where you was? Why you did?
Oh yeah, and when I want, like I said, I want to know everything. Even if someone is 80 years old, I want to know what they passed from, where they were, what they were doing.
Right.
And anyone over 90, you might say, well, it's pretty evident. No,
Not always.
I want the whole story. But I did find some real humdingers of obituaries online.
Did you?
I did, and let me read you a couple that I found. Okay, so I have the obituaries here. The first one is Kathleen Demlow. Kathleen Demlow Shunk was born on March 19th, 1938, to Joseph and Gertrude Shunk of Wabasso. She married Dennis Demlow at St. Anne's in Wabasso in 1957 and had 2 children, Gina and Jay. In 1962, she became pregnant by her husband's brother, Lyle Demlow, and moved to California. She abandoned her children, Gina and Jay, who were then raised by her parents in Clements, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Shunk. She passed away on May 31st, 2018 in Springfield, and will now face judgment.
Ouch.
She will not be missed by Gina and Jay, and they understand that this world is a better place without her.
Oh my goodness! Now that's
Gina
telling
and
it
Jay
all.
said, "Bye, Felicia."
Now that just goes against my southern upbringing.
Right, but we need to know the details. So that really is giving us information that we didn't have.
That's true, but I really want to know how she passed.
Now, yeah,
In what manner did she pass? Was it either Gina or Jay? Did they have a hand in it?
did they have something to do with it?
Did they have something to do with it? And the next one, probably my favorite one that I ran across, her name was Florence Flo Harrelson, and this is her obituary. Florence Flo Harrelson, 65, formerly of Chelsea, died on February 22nd, 2024, without family by her side due to burnt bridges and a wake of destruction in her path.
Oh my gosh!
Okay.
Florence did not want an obituary or anyone, including her family, to know she died. That's because even in death, she wanted those she terrorized to still be living in fear, looking over their shoulders.
Oh my gosh!
So this isn't so much an obituary, but more of a public service announcement.
She must have been like a mean lady then, if people felt that way about her.
I would definitely think so. But now, I'm going to prevent any of this, I'm going to write my own obituary.
Oh, we
And
have to. Me and Lena have got to look at that and screen it before you, or like when you get done writing it.
I don't know if I want y'all to screen it.
Well, listen, depending on who you leave in charge after you're gone,
You
it
won't
don't
have a
matter what
say
you
in it.
write.
I may not want to leave Lena in charge. Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
But now, when I do write it, I'm gonna. It's gonna start out by saying, "Jesus called, Jason answered,"
I like that.
and I'm also gonna have that put on my tombstone.
Right. When we were in, I think Savannah, Georgia or something, we saw a headstone. And when we were standing there and I read it to myself and I had to look back because it said she did what she could. That was on this lady's tombstone. She did what she could. And I was like, I don't know what to think about that. And even as the tourist came by, he's like, that's like the craziest thing he's seen on any of these tombstones. She did what she could.
Well, there's two that I have seen. One is I did it my way. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what they did their way. And another one I kind of like is I told you I was sick.
It's like that person that always is sick, and then when they're gone, it's like, I told you.
This time it was serious.
This time it was for real.
Okay, with the obituaries out of the way, let's take a few minutes for a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the fascinating history of hearses.
Ooh.
So welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about hearses.
Why do they look like that?
Well, there's a history behind it. Back before automobiles, of course, the caskets were carried on horse-drawn coaches, and in the rural parts of America, of course, it would probably be a basic wagon, but in the larger cities, they were specifically built coaches with a lot of ornamentation, lanterns on the side, fabric tops, stuff like that. A lot of them had glass in the sides where you could see the casket or coffin, whichever was being used. And when automobiles came along, they started taking on some of the ornamentation of those horse-drawn coaches, like the lantern lights on the side, fabric or vinyl tops on the top.
Kind of like to pay homage, I guess, to those
Oh, yeah.
those carriages, kind of like carry on that tradition, but in a modern way.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And to make the car more formal in appearance.
So it looks a little fancier than your normal sedan on the road.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And of course, sedans were favored because when the automobile came around, sedans were the dominant type of automobile. And there's a reason why Cadillacs were chosen over other brands. Cadillacs were of course more formal, more upscale, and they also had the biggest engines available in sedans. And with the hearse conversions, adding all that weight to the auto, you wanted the bigger engine. And so that's why Cadillac was traditionally chosen.
That makes a lot of sense though, because you know, just seeing how much bigger a hearse is than like your normal vehicle.
Oh yeah, for
So,
sure.
and then also having to carry the casket and all that.
I guess you could call them the big backs of the
As the
auto
kids say
industry.
these days.
And in many cases, in the rural South especially, with the less populated and lower income communities, the hearses doubled as ambulances.
Oh,
So if you were sick and had to go to the hospital, a lot of times you would call up the funeral home or the undertaker, and that's who would transport you to the hospital.
oh wow. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. And now in the larger cities, more populated cities and the more well-to-do areas, the hospital might actually have an ambulance, but it was actually a hearse, but just painted in orange or red ambulance colors.
Oh, okay.
But Hearst manufacturers manufactured the ambulances at that time.
Oh,
And then ambulances kind of transformed into the larger box trucks that we see today.
I wonder if that's happened over time as like technology got better and say the equipment changed and had more equipment, and so they had to get a little bigger than what you could inside of those.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would imagine it's hard to do CPR
In the back of a car.
in the back of a sedan hearse.
But were there medics? Or was it just the undertaker getting you to the hospital?
I think it was probably both cases.
Probably just depended on, again, the area, because in the small community you may not have that extra person. So that'd be interesting.
And it might actually be that the undertaker had some medical training that could assist in a medical emergency.
Well, I guess if they had you piled up in the car to go to the ambulance or to the hospital and things didn't go so well, they could just take you on to the funeral home.
And you would only be charged for one ride.
I mean, it sounds very economical to me.
I wonder what the deductible would be for that.
I don't know.
But I think it's good that we have ambulances now, because I don't know if I would want to be transported in something that would eventually take me to a graveside service.
Right, yeah.
And 21 gun salute. That's another custom. Now this is reserved for military funerals and head of state. Have y'all ever been to a service with a 21 gun salute?
I haven't.
I don't know if I've been to one or if I've just seen one.
Yeah, like on like a movie or something.
Well, I have been to one. This was not at a funeral, but it was at a memorial type service. When Mother was a teacher at a high school, a couple of the history classes from that high school went down to Warm Springs, Georgia for some type of commemoration service for FDR at his little White House down there. And I tagged along because I'm a history buff. I love history. Very interesting trip. Got to tour the little White House. And this ceremony was being filmed by C-SPAN and CNN live. And during the service, there was a 21 gun salute. And I have to say it caught me a little off guard, just like the trumpet blast at my grandmother's funeral. And apparently it caught one of the students off guard too. And she said some very colorful language that was picked up by C-SPAN and CNN.
Oh no.
Oh yeah,
Somebody got in trouble when they got home.
definitely. So, oh, and by the way, the museum there at the little White House, they had Eleanor Roosevelt's dress on display on a mannequin. And I'm telling you, me standing flat-footed next to that dress on that mannequin, I feel like her shoulders came up to my ears.
Oh.
And you're not short.
I'm not.
Was she that tall?
Oh yeah,
I didn't realize that.
She was a strapping mule of a lady. Very much so. So embalming.
Okay.
What do we know about embalming?
How much would you like to know?
Well, I feel like you probably know more than what a lot of people would care to know. But do you know the history behind it?
I do not know the history.
Well, it seems back in the time era of the Civil War, families wanted to bring their fallen loved ones back home, but as we all know, in that day and time, without refrigeration or anything, it would be very hard to recover a body to bring back home. And it was the custom to immediately bury the fallen. But then a man came on the scene, and I can't remember his name, but he perfected a technique of embalming that allowed the bodies to be sent home to the family for burial there. However, it was super expensive.
Oh.
And now it's become mainstream and is part of the traditional funeral. Although I've seen on YouTube, there are some people who are advocating for a natural burial instead of embalming. However, I'm a big fan of a traditional funeral.
Yeah. I have seen some of those now where you can literally like be turned into dirt to like go into the earth. And
Yes.
they call it like the natural burial or whatever. And that to me is just,
I've seen some too where you're like put into this pod and you're planted, and then it like it turns into a tree. It grows into a tree as you
Bethany the Weeping Willow.
decompose. However, according to Google, Dr. Thomas Holmes introduced modern chemical embalming techniques to allow for long-distance transportation of fallen soldiers.
All right.
I'm sure the families, appreciated that because instead before they would just hear about it and that was it.
Right. They didn't.
There was no closure.
Exactly.
So that was pretty cool that he came up with that.
Exactly.
And actually, nowadays, if thinking about like traditional funeral services where people are embalmed and then they're buried, some people want to be cremated, which is becoming more popular. But sometimes it's not just because of money, because they can't afford to be buried. Sometimes you can be embalmed and have a traditional funeral service and then be cremated after.
I've seen somebody do that. I can't remember who it was, but I remember being shocked that they did that and then they were going to cremate afterwards. So
It's becoming more popular where people just don't want to be buried. They just want to be cremated, but they want to be able to have that service.
Oh yeah. And speaking of cremation, it is becoming more popular.
it is.
I've seen just recently several people who chose that route. Speaking of cremation, do y'all remember the story of the Tri-State Crematory?
Remind us which story that was.
This would have been, I believe, early 2000s, maybe the very late 1990s. This guy ran a crematory. People would send the bodies of their loved ones there to be cremated. This was before it was in vogue for a lot of funeral homes to have on-site crematories.
Oh yeah.
This was before it became so popular. They would send the bodies up there to Tri-State, and they would receive ashes back. Everybody thought everything was going normal, and then the gas man came to refill I believe it was propane tanks at the crematory. And as he was filling the tank, it seems like maybe a dog brought a bone up, or maybe he spotted something in the edge of the woods, and it turned out to be human, and he reported what he had seen, and investigators found hundreds of bodies in the woods, stacked in storage buildings.
I think there was a documentary about that.
I think I do remember that, where he just stacked them up instead of actually cremating them.
Right.
Well, and I've heard some other scandals over the past few years of different funeral homes or whoever doing something similar or even having them just hidden, and I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah. And I can't remember if it was that case, but they even reviewed his usage of gas and noticed that there was in what little gas he was using, there was no way he was cremating bodies.
That many people.
And it turns out that a study of some of the ashes he had sent to loved ones was actually wood ash
Oh wow.
and not cremation.
Well, that makes you wonder what his motive was for.
I think it had something to do with some kind of financial motive.
Oh.
He was using the money for something else, and he was so far behind that he couldn't actually afford to cremate the bodies.
Oh, wow.
So let's talk about some old customs that aren't as prevalent today as they were. Oh, let's go back and talk about Decoration Day. So here in the South, we have something called Decoration Day. I'm not sure if it's up here so much, if it's common up north.
I'm not sure.
But here it's a day where a cemetery, a lot of time, especially if it's attached to a church, they'll have Decoration Sunday. And before the service, if it's at a church, people will decorate the graves of their loved ones with fresh flowers and then go in and have the church service. Then there's usually a meal after the church service, and then people will visit with each other and walk around the graveyard.
Oh, wow.
And then a lot of times after that, there'll be a singing that say it'll start like at 4 p.m. and last for a couple hours. But I don't think it's as common today as it once was.
Especially not that big. I have seen where, like the county I live in, they'll put out a list of each church's, like when their decoration is, but I don't think it's as big of a to-do as like back then where they'd have a singing and a meal and all that. Now it's just like, oh, on this day you can come and put your flowers out. So
I think it was a much bigger thing, say like when our parents and grandparents were in charge of that kind of thing. Because I know when I was young, it was never a big to-do, like going to decoration. That was just not something that we did. But I know that my husband, his mother and grandmother, Decoration Day was very important to them. But I don't see my kids participating in Decoration Day like that. I think it's a dying tradition, no pun intended.
So let's talk about some old customs.
okay.
One is bringing the person home and laying them out in the living room. Now, of course, back really long ago, that of course was the custom, and you wouldn't have to bring them back because they remain there at home. But when embalming came on the scene, a lot of times they were sent to the undertaker to be prepared for visitation and then sent back home to lay out, say, in the living room at their house or a family member's house. And you would go and visit with the family just like you would at a funeral home today. And to go along with this, in the South, I know especially I've heard Mama talk about it when she was a little girl. It was even a thing into the 70s. It was called Setting Up with the Dead. And it was...
Isn't there a song about that?
Yes, Ray Stevens, Setting Up with the Dead. And one of my favorite lines is, there ain't no door back there. And he says, well, where do you want one? And he ran out.
There is now.
There is now. But anyway, you should really go check out that video. It's on YouTube. But yeah, you would go and family and friends would come to the house and visit, and usually family especially would set up all night with the deceased, and some friends, good friends, would choose to stay with the family, and they would set vigil all night.
Why do you think they set up with the dead? I mean, they were dead.
Well, according to Google, people sat up with the dead to guard the body from animals and insects, to ensure the deceased was not left alone, and to provide a social and practical support system for the grieving family, especially before the advent of funeral homes and modern preservation. So in the South, we called it sitting up with the dead. But another term would be called a wake, and it's basically now what we would call a visitation. But before funeral homes, they had their family at their house. So that the community members would bring food, provide assistance, and pay their respects, acting as both a practical necessity and a profound act of social and religious duty. So basically, sitting up with the dead was their version of a visitation.
Oh,
Okay. I've heard the term wake, especially in TV shows and movies, but it was not a widely used term, at least in my neck of the woods.
yeah. Not around here. It may have been in other parts of Alabama, but not around here. I never heard it called that.
No. And another lost custom is stopping all the clocks in the house and covering all the mirrors in the house of the deceased.
There's got to be something to that.
There's got to be. I'd like to know, but
Yeah.
I do not know.
Well, let's take a break and ask Google.
That sounds like a plan. When we come back, we'll talk about caskets and coffins. Now that we're back, what did you find out about mirrors and clocks?
People covered mirrors and stopped clocks when someone died as part of superstitions and rituals, believing a mirror could trap a spirit or that a stopped clock marked the moment of death, preventing bad luck or the deceased spirit from getting stuck.
So they
Interesting.
thought that the mirrors like kept them from possibly going to the afterlife. So they covered them up.
One common belief was that a soul could become trapped in a mirror, so covering them prevented the deceased from remaining in the house.
That's interesting.
And then the stopping of the clock. Stopping the clocks was a symbolic act to freeze the exact moment of death.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. I knew it had to just be more than, oh, they just did that. There had to be something to it. So
I figured there was
now
some
we
sort
know.
of reason.
So let's talk about caskets versus coffins.
I didn't know there was a difference.
There is a difference, big difference. I did not know either. I thought the terms were interchangeable, although I always preferred the term casket. But it turns out caskets are what we normally use today. It's very rare, at least in the United States, that coffins are used. However, they're still used in the UK a lot. And actually, the Queen was buried in a coffin. And the difference is the casket is the rectangular container, and a coffin is the more angular container.
Oh, like you see, like on like Halloween
Vampires.
decorations, vampire. Like you
Yes.
see that stereotypically as like that shape.
Yes, a more gothic presentation
Right.
of the container that bows out around the elbow area. So there is a difference. And a long time ago, especially before embalming came to the rural South, and when there was not either a casket or coffin involved, which at that time it would more likely have been a coffin, the family would take the front door off the house and stand on sawhorses or something similar and lay the body out flat and prepare it for visitation or the wake, if you want to use that term, or sitting up with the dead.
So like we do a visitation now, but it's because they wouldn't go ahead and put them in the casket. It would just, they would lay them out.
Yes, and a lot of times in the rural South, there might not have been a casket or coffin. Either
Right, they may
family
have
mi-
wrapped them up or...
Right, the family may not have been able to afford it, or someone was having to build a casket or coffin for the body, and during that time the family would lay the deceased out on the front door that had been taken off the hinges.
I think I've seen that in a movie.
Yes, it was portrayed in Gone with the Wind. When Scarlett's mother passed, the front door was taken off and she was laid out on the front door for visitation.
I thought I'd seen that somewhere.
And eulogies. I don't know if they're as common today. I've seen them in movies and TV shows, and I guess even in the modern era, there'll be someone preparing for a eulogy. But from where where I'm from, they're not that common. It's usually the preacher or whoever's conducting the service that will talk about the deceased.
I feel like, especially since we live in the Bible Belt, basically a preacher is going to be at your funeral, and then typically someone will read the obituary, and then the preacher will come up and maybe say a few words and then share some verses, which that religious aspect might not be so common in other parts.
True.
Yeah, that may just be how it's been custom, of course, in Southern funerals. But like you said, I've seen it in movies because they'll have like friends come up, tell stories and things. But like, I've not been to one like that. I can't think of one like in my entire life.
I haven't either. And actually, if I was tasked with having to give a eulogy, I don't know if I could do it. I would probably freeze and stutter. It would not be pleasant.
It would not be very pretty and all that.
No. So let's talk about some traditions from other cultures for funerals.
Okay.
Let's step outside of our little southern box, and let's visit Tibet for a minute. They have what's called a sky burial. They take their loved one out out to an open range in the mountains. They're dismembered, and birds of prey are allowed to consume the remains.
Oh,
Yeah. Definitely not something we're familiar with. This practice reflects the Buddhist belief that the body is merely an empty vessel and that the soul is more important.
oh, so it's just a way of dealing with the remains instead, because they believe that the soul has gone on and it's literally just a
Right.
carcass at that point.
Which honestly, that's what we believe. We just don't feed our dead loved ones to birds of prey.
True. And in Madagascar, they practice Famadhana, the turning of the bones, where families exhume their deceased ancestors every few years. They rewrap the corpses in fresh shrouds and dance with the bodies before returning them to the tomb.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, no disrespect, but that kind of practice here you may end up with a free trip somewhere
Yeah.
for evaluation.
And a white jacket.
And in South Korea, they have burial beads. Due to the limited space for graves, South Koreans have turned cremated remains into gem-like beads. These beads, which come in various colors, can then be used as decorative items.
Oh, that's interesting.
I will say that actually happens here too, because of cremation becoming more common. There actually, Cody and our first date was to the Batesville Casket Company seminar about their new cremation products. So they had this whole line of products where you could, like little necklace vials and things where you could put your loved one's ashes and wear it around your neck. And I know that that's a thing here, using cremated remains and turning it into jewelry.
So it's something they've done for probably forever, and then we're just now kind of stepping into that where we take on some of that from other cultures.
I have seen where you can actually have diamonds made from either hair, and I think cremains can be made into diamonds.
That's interesting.
Let's move on to Ghana and fantasy coffins.
Fantasy coffins?
In Ghana, coffins are often made in shapes that symbolize the deceased's life, career, or an important aspect of their identity. Examples include coffins shaped like fish for a fisherman or a car for a taxi driver.
Mine would be a therapist chair.
I guess mine would be a bank vault.
Oh, there you go. Or a money bag.
Oh yes, a money bag. And in the Philippines, they have hanging coffins. Particularly among the Igorot people of the Cordillera region, coffins are hung from the sides of cliffs and in caves. The belief is that this placement brings the deceased closer to heaven.
I think I've seen that like in movies, maybe.
I have watched a documentary that kind of touched on it, and it was rather interesting. And this one is within the United States, but it's something that is foreign to us in our region. But it's jazz funerals.
Isn't that more like in New Orleans, Louisiana kind of area?
Yes.
I've seen that before.
Specifically in New Orleans. It's a vibrant celebratory procession that blends European and African traditions. A jazz band plays lively music to lead the funeral parade, turning a somber occasion into a celebration of life.
I've definitely seen that in some movies and things. I've never got to see that in real life, like around here, but I imagine it's definitely got to be a happier time than, kind of how we are. It's very sad and crying and things like that. So there it's a celebration.
Right. I have seen it in movies and I think a couple of TV shows. And one of the jokes on the TV show was they joined a street party and partied for an hour before they realized it was actually someone's funeral.
Oh my gosh.
And if you think about it, I like the idea of a celebration of life.
I do too.
When I pass on, I don't want people to cry and mourn. I would rather they be happy with upbeat music and celebrate my life and celebrate that they're still living their life.
Yeah. You can leave me and Lena to plan that party.
We'll see about that. Since I won't give y'all free reign over my obituary,
We get to plan the Jason's No More party.
Yes, absolutely.
But a lot of times memorial services are called a celebration of life instead of just saying it's a memorial service.
This is true. And I think I've seen that more so when the service is held after the interment.
Yes.